Hi guys, I'm Tara Lipinski,
And this is Todd Kapistashi.
and you are listening to Unexpecting, the podcast.
So, well, it's funny. We just talked about this. I love surprising you with little things.
Oh,
that
great.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna talk
I was
about.
just like, oh, Todd, what should we talk about? I gave you like a list of things, and you're like,
Well, I was thinking about this morning as I was getting ready for this, and we just had a conversation about you now, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, saying that you were going to change your name
oh, yeah.
to Tara Kapistashi legally. It's a tough last name.
It is a tough last name.
I would
You have to
argue-
give me that, right?
Anyway, it just reminded me because I'm Tara Lipinski. I'm Todd Kapistashi, but we're married.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. Like, I want us to have the same last name. You know?
Here's the thing that I struggle with is Tara has made valid points about, the paperwork's hard. It's like you kind of have to change everything, I guess.
Well, it's like if there was just one thing that, first off, I've had a few friends that have done it, and one had like a cheat system that really helped, but another friend was like, it was like a disaster.
What do you mean
And
cheat system?
there was like, she said she found something that like was like a service that could help. I don't know. There was like something that was like a cheat way to not make it so difficult. But my one friend was like, it was difficult. And like, when I start thinking about it, if it was just like, hey, I could email someone and my legal name would be Kapistashi. Obviously, I'd keep Lipinski for, quote unquote, my work stuff or stage name. But it's not. It's like, think about it. It's like Delta. It's like everything. It's every little.
But that's what I don't
thing.
understand about name changes. Yeah, I guess so. When you fly, you have to go by Kapistashi.
Well, no, but I would have to have it. Like, I would have to.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be your legal name, I
Right.
guess.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an argument to be made. Why change a name that's somewhat recognizable to my terrible last? Well, I love my last name, but
Yeah.
it's
I
a
mean,
tough one.
It's a tough one.
What I was gonna say though is the reason I brought this up is like I feel like you complain about the paperwork, which I think is partially true, but I do believe deep down that if my last name was like Smith or a more pleasing last name, that it would have been done. And I'm right.
No.
Also,
look, our daughter is Kapistashi, so it's like,
Right. So don't you want to share your last name with your daughter?
Yeah. Can I make it Capo? I feel like Capo is
No,
like.
you can't change my last name. No. Well, what just struck me too is I don't know if you remember this is like right when we got married or maybe we got engaged. Like TMZ did like a pretty funny video actually. Where they're all in the newsroom and they like talk about like news or
yes, I
whatever.
remember
Like,
that.
Tara Lipinski's engaged to Todd.
Yeah, and they were like making fun of it.
Well, then they had a debate about like whether or not you should change your name, and someone was like, he should change his name to Lipinski. She's the famous one.
Well, no, guys. I mean, this is a whole nother
pretty
subject,
funny.
but like, why is it?
Yeah, I mean, there's
That's like a gender thing where it's
obvious why. It's whether or not that's right or not.
Yeah, I feel like it could go
course.
either way. I bet in time it'll be like, hey, which name should we choose?
No, I think people will just keep their name in time, or just people will be traditional and be like, yeah, it's cool to merge, and typically the man
merge.
has done it.
I know, but you know what, TK? Can you?
And I'm not a particularly traditional
can you
person.
change to Lipinski? We never talked about this.
No thanks.
Okay, so see, next time you give me shit
No,
about this,
I don't
I'm
know.
gonna
I wouldn't
say,
be honestly if that was a serious like this would mean so much to me. I don't know.
You would never.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess it is hard. It's one of those things where it's such a societal norm, and it's becoming a societal norm that women don't take the name. It's just pretty. I haven't ever known anyone to take their wife's last name.
So you could
Maybe
be,
I could be a groundbreaker.
trailblazer, Todd.
I could be a trailblazer.
Okay, this is good. Maybe this is why I haven't taken the name yet, and now we.
You know what we should do? We should do something like if we get over like 50,000 listens or comments on the next podcast, Todd will change his last name.
Oh my
to
God, guys,
Lipinski.
do it. I would love it. Okay. That was a fun surprise. We had this because the other night we had this conversation, and it's
How did
always,
that come up? We were at a party and you started talking about it, and then I walked over and
I don't know. A lot of people will ask me or ask you. I think they get confused because I think a lot of like when we go to hotels, a lot of times it's Mr. Lipinski, so it's already that. Anyways, okay, surrogate update. I was hoping that I could tell you she had, if you're, an avid listener, which we hope you are, the last time she was having a polyp removed so that we could actually get started. And she went in for the appointment, and they're like, oh, we thought it was a cervical polyp. sorry, we can't do this today. Might be 2 months. Who knows? Could be a few months before you get in. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So now we're waiting and hoping. There's a possibility October 14th she could go in and actually get the uterine polyp removed, but then she still has to wait a whole cycle after that to recover. So it's just in this like waiting game space, which it just brings me back to, it's like, again, our life, fortunately for the last year, like you forget some things. Like it was weird. The other day I had to email my nurse and ask a question of how long it takes to get mock cycle results, which Todd, I knew I knew down to like all of this time spans on everything. And you like start to forget a little bit, which I think is good just for like trauma healing. But it does bring me back to, and you always used to tease me about it, but like counting. And it made me think too of just like in infertility and IVF, there are things that you connect with people about because it's all these little isms or things that you do that no one else, like a normal person trying to get pregnant naturally would do, that you feel so connected to people. But it's like, there I am counting the days and the possible, well, if we get the results, 2 weeks later, and it's just like so dumb because it's probably something else will go and it will be like, oh, delayed another 3 months. And,
but also in this world, you kind of give up the ideal scenarios a lot. Like I think if we hadn't gone through any of this, a lot of people will meticulously plan out like the ages between their kids.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always work because it takes a while for normal people to sort of just get pregnant, when they want to. But, a lot of people, my parents, they were like, oh, we want them two years apart.
Yeah.
So they had me 2 years after my older sister.
Right.
And it worked out. Like, I feel like for us, we had those conversations about like wanting it to be actually closer, like maybe a year, but then it didn't work out. But I feel like I'll give you a pat on the back on this. I feel like I think you're just more concerned with it working.
Yeah, I'm more concerned.
Oh my gosh, now it's a year and 8 months, or it's a year and this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, whatever,
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that just would love it to like move quicker. Or ideally, I wish it was, like she's already pregnant and we're expecting a baby now. But you just get to the point where you're just like, if we can even have a child is incredible. And like, that's all you're thinking
really
about.
Be picky at
you
this
can't
point.
you can't be picky. But it does take me back to that. And it was funny. We actually have a new sponsor on the podcast, which I love, FERRING, and they're really trying to, help women know their options and have support, emotional, financial, all of these things, which again is like what I love, being part of and spreading the word, and people that don't know and they're just starting IVF or they're in the thick of it, giving them these resources that could help. But I was looking up a post that I'm going to do, and it was one of these calendars and it was so kind of sad to look at. It was a calendar of, pretty much, me planning out on a calendar from 2020, like when the pregnancies, like due dates would be. And it was like 3 of them. And obviously none of those worked, but it's just like the meticulous counting of days. And it's interesting. I have a friend who's just, going through the egg freezing process, being proactive, which is incredible. I do think like a lot of my friends have listened to the podcast and are like, maybe I should do that, which makes me so excited because I wish that's something I did when I was younger. But it was funny because she's like, oh, they gave me my schedule. Like, I think she got like Taylor Swift concert tickets, which I mean, it's like a once in a lifetime type of thing. And she's like, is it going to end up on this date? And in my mind, I want to be like, no. But like, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, eeks, it might be a little close. And it's truly, anyone who's going through IVF right now, like, is that not the truth? It is Murphy's Law that anything you plan or any special event or anything, it will end up on that. It will ruin it. It's so funny. It literally will just ruin any plan, schedule, or special day.
Well, yeah, we talked about it on the first podcast. I feel like every bad thing happened on like your birthday or like Valentine's Day every year.
Mother's Day.
Yeah.
But like also anything we were going to plan that could be fun to take your mind off something, it's like, nah, no. We're going to
you had a bunch of girls trips too, I think, that you didn't go on because of it. And
it's the way it is.
And now a quick word from our sponsors.
If you've been struggling with infertility, you know just how isolating the journey can feel. Even the closest to us often don't know what to say or how to provide support. It can be easy to turn inward or mask the emotional and physical burden of infertility for fear that no one will understand. It took me more than 5 years to comfortably speak about my infertility journey. But when I did, I discovered the unwavering strength and support that came from connecting with others who are on the same path. It inspired me to launch this Unexpecting podcast and create a platform that invites listeners like you to share your experience and bolster a community of encouragement. This episode's sponsor, FERRING Pharmaceuticals, is equally as committed to supporting you on your path. Although your journey is unique, you're not alone. You deserve to feel supported and have your voice heard during the challenges that you're currently facing and those that lie ahead. Visit FERRINGfertility.com to find resources to help you.
Well, another fertility news, you sent it to me just to take a look at it. I thought it was really good, but you're kind of writing a lore little, I don't know what they'd call it. Cause it's not an article. It's a little bit of like a...
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but I'll call it a piece.
I would call it like if it were a video, like a vignette. It's like not, it's a little shorter, but it's like really cool and impactful.
I think, when this opportunity came around, it's obviously concerning women's rights and medical abortion. And, I've gone through 4 miscarriages and had 4 D&Cs. And it was interesting as I'm like, going through this and thinking of what to say, what I want my voice to say in this. But it's like what I had were medical abortions. And when that's written on paper and you're reading it, it was, for me, I just always said the word D&C. And you don't really think anything of that in my mind of other than like the emotional trauma and, this pregnancy's ending. But it really is, something that I needed for my health and, everything that's going on in, the political climate and everything with women's, reproductive rights. It's just, it was just important for me to tell my story. And there's a million different stories. And obviously, mine is not unique, but, I did have 4 miscarriages, medical abortions. And I think that, I'm sure we talked about it on the podcast, but that 4th miscarriage where, I passed some of the embryonic tissue at home, and that was so traumatic for me. And I took the pill and then went on to do another D&C. It's just, when I was writing this, I was like, oh my goodness, I am so lucky that it really made me think, because it was like we had so many other things going on that I didn't have to worry about what so many women are worrying about right now. Like I knew I could call Dr. Beck or I could call multiple doctors and be like, this is no longer a viable pregnancy. Like I know my risks. I know I could get sepsis and an infection. I could possibly die. Like I knew I was going to get medical attention and that I was going to get doctors making sure my health was okay. But yeah, as I was going through it, again, you're so involved in your own world and your own issues and your own problems. And then when I was really, going through this, I just put myself in someone else's shoes in that exact moment. And it was so sad to think about that.
Just imagine you had to get in your car that night on the 4th one and had to drive to Nevada or something.
Right. And just the fear that you would have. Because I do remember, obviously, in our unique story, like I so desperately wanted a baby that I was sort of risking I just didn't care. It was like, whatever, just like make it happen for me. But there were so many moments. Remember when I can't even remember, second one, they thought I had a corneal pregnancy, which is like, a very dangerous, form of where it was sitting in my uterus, which it wasn't. But I remember for like that hour where Dr. Beck's like, I'd like you immediately to go to this high risk, specialist right now. We need to look. And I'm like Googling what this is. And I remember for a moment, like, oh, this is so sad. Like this pregnancy is not working. But on top of it, you still, survival is like inside of you. Like you care about your health, and that thought and that immediate like rush of adrenaline of, oh my gosh, I could also, on top of all of this, my health could be at risk. What would that look like? And so, it's just really sad that, like a woman died. It's just, I just thought, I feel comfortable enough sharing my story. We've shared so much. And yeah, so I don't know when that will.
Yeah, you don't know when that's going to come
I
out.
don't know when that's going to come out, but we'll see. I wonder what, it's always hard too when you're talking about, again, there's just women's health in general. And I was saying this to you the other day, like there just needs so much more attention, research, like doctors need to, really hear women out, whether, perimenopause, menopause. There's so many different, stages that a woman goes through, IVF, infertility, endometriosis, all of these things. It's crazy on the spectrum. There's so many things that I think don't get enough attention. And I was reading, especially on endometriosis, it takes almost 10 years to get a proper diagnosis, but there's companies coming out to, like test and, people trying to do more research, like to actually do research on endometriosis. I feel it's like, they get periods. Like we don't have to research that. But if there was some other issue for a man, I do think like, boom, we'll like figure it out.
Yeah.
So
this is kind of off topic, but I always think about these things when they're kind of like flashpoints where I think you're right. I think now for some reason in the last few years, and I don't know if it's like public figures coming out with some of these issues, having them personally and talking about them and saying there's not enough sort of resources for these things. Is it that we're like progressing as a society, or is it just, and I don't know that either of them are bad, and I'm sure it's a combination of the two, or is it the sort of like free market, like economic part of it where people like in companies are realizing that there's this like untapped, oh my gosh, there's like, half the world is women and they have these like massive issues that we've never addressed. Like, how can we kind of make a buck addressing it? Which I don't, however it ends up working out, I guess is okay. And maybe that's a credit to like a free market kind of economy where you're always trying to find a need and what people need and profit off of it.
The saddest part of it is like they didn't realize there was a need, because I think there's so much shame around these topics.
But that's what I mean. So I think it's almost like we're at a point where all these people are coming out about it. Like for whatever reason, people are finally waking up in the morning being like, like women are dying when they give birth, or a lot of women have this painful endometriosis when they have sex or go to the bathroom. Like maybe we should like talk about it and like
but
fix
think
it.
about it. Think about someone who has endometriosis though. Like the reason why it's happening now is I think just even maybe social media and, people are, following their favorite celebrity and they're coming out about endometriosis and feeling less shame, but also then like, oh wait, the 6 doctors I went to that just told me like, oh, it's your period. That's just, you get it once a month. Like that's what happens.
Well, that's the
like,
thing that's so sad though, is that like you have to go to school for so long to become a doctor, and to not sort of like, I don't know, there's probably doctors who are in their 60s who have been like seeing women, hearing women for 40 years, and they didn't think like, oh, like maybe there's something more.
Right.
To,
because I think it's just like, oh, like women just deal with that pain. That's what it is. Like we don't need to like dig into it. But it's like, it is crazy. I'm dealing with so much endometriosis pain recently. I think, also like going through IVF and then, not doing it anymore. My body's just trying to find out, like it's all over the place. Like I was taking hormones and all of these meds for so long that I think it's just like, I'm broken now. I don't know what to do. But also, and I am lucky enough that I got the endo surgery recently to get rid of that endometrioma, but it's endometriosis. And I don't think I even have like, the worst case, like even close to it. There are people that I follow on Instagram that are like in debilitating pain. But the other night, it literally woke me up at 4 a.m. out of like pain, and like just searing pain, where then I was like laying there kind of like frozen. And it is like, it's just crazy that then if the next day, I went to a doctor and they'd be like, yep, just part of being a woman, like that is insane to me. So it is like at least refreshing to see so many people, and I think I'm like living in a good time now, right? Because soon it's going to be perimenopause and menopause and all of these things that like no one talks about. But now you see like Naomi Watts is, she has a company about menopause, and people are coming out and speaking about it and their experience, because like that is fascinating to me too. Like when you get to that stage, your whole body's changing, your hormone, everything is changing. And again, like you're just going to go through life and nothing's going to be that of much of an impact. You're going to be like 40, 50, 60, and you're just going to like kind of be the same. Like,
well, but yeah, men have things women don't. Like I could get prostate cancer. I could.
No. Okay. So I could get, like think of all the things. Okay. Wait a minute.
But
Bad
I
point.
understand that you have
like,
also have parts I don't have.
Right. But
that could get cancer too. But there are
and there's more
male specific issues.
Yeah. But I just think that, there's going to be so much that I'll go through that is going to be sort of, like what you're used to, and it's going to change, and I'm going to go through these symptoms and feelings. And it's so nice that I feel like I'm now living in a time where so many people are speaking out about it, that it's going to be less shameful. It's going to be,
hopefully though. I mean, we've kind of gone backwards in some ways in our own country on some of this stuff.
Right.
So hopefully it keeps going on.
Yeah, hopefully. But so many more people are talking about it, and just like women's issues in general. Like Jessica Biel does all of, this advocacy for, just periods in general. So kids, women or girls, when they're getting their period, it's also not some hush hush topic. Anyways, I think it's cool to see all this stuff coming out, and especially for endometriosis. And I'm doing something special with, it's not quite out there yet, but I'm working with a company that I think will be like just huge when this comes out for endometriosis, in detection, and first is sort of that first line of, like, could this be endo?
Do you think in another life we would have hit it off on Love is Blind?
We talk about this a lot. I think so. I do. I think if we were in the pods, this was a, left turn, but I like it.
Well, we were watching the new season, sadly, part of yesterday.
We love Love is Blind.
It's such a nice turn off your brain kind of thing.
I think that if we were in the pods, 100% we would.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, 100% we would. We would find each other there.
You think?
Yeah. Because I think like our initial relationship was built off of emails and WhatsApp, of just talking for a long time, because I was traveling and it was just like good banter. And we didn't really have any physical like contact for months.
Yeah. In a way, it was actually a little bit
like Love is Blind.
Like when I got you in front of me, I wasn't like quite sure what to do. Like they always talk about connecting the voice to the face.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk on the phone or anything, though. We just did a lot of
We never
texting.
spoke on the phone. I think, that's interesting. I feel like you wouldn't have been great on the phone.
I could have hyped myself up to be better than I am now.
Sometimes there's like long pauses, and I would have probably been like, is he into me? Is he not into me? But I feel like via text, we were like,
I do watch.
I kind of was like, yeah, I'll probably marry this guy.
I do watch that show, and I truly do. I probably every couple says this, but I do actually think we would have. I mean, who knows? But
why do you
may
think,
have hit it off with someone better than me. Like we might have been in a love triangle, and you picked the other guy, and then I would have shown up at the the resort and tried to like steal you back away.
Why do you think we would?
I just think I don't know. I think we like make each other laugh and have like a funny banter, and
yeah, I think we would have found each other.
I think like as far as like, and that's not, I don't know that like impacts like a good marriage necessarily, like banter, but I think like our flirtation, I feel like is good and compatible with each other, which is good. I shouldn't say it doesn't impact a marriage.
But, great.
No, you know what I mean? Like there's, I don't know. I think there's probably more important things than how you like banter back and forth in a marriage, but I think we have that. And that's kind of all that Love is Blind is really based on is like 3 long days of, well, I shouldn't say that. They talk about real life stuff.
Yeah, they do.
The only thing I will say, and I'm not trying to like actually say that Love is Blind is an interesting social experiment, because it's a TV show that's, kind of lowbrow, but like when I watch that show, I do actually think there's something interesting about like conflict resolution on that show, because they all get in fights and they just have met each other. They don't
Right.
really know each other. Like a lot of times there's like red flags where a guy will get hyper upset about something.
Yeah.
Same with the women. And then like, it's like, how do they, it doesn't really matter if they're going to get married. Like none of, you know, there's been a few success stories, but that to me is like irrelevant in a way. It's just fun to see people like falling in love, quote unquote, without seeing each other, then like having to meet and then go into the real world and like conflict resolve, because they're drinking, there's like other people around that they may have
it's not
had
like this
attraction
focused
to.
like 2-hour like talk in a room. It's you're seeing this person
But they
live
get in,
their life.
and they get in fights, and it's just interesting to see how different people, like sometimes I'm envious. I'm like, wow, that guy handled that like better than I would. Like I can take a lesson from that.
Yeah.
And like, oh man, like the way that person reacted, I don't know if I would be running for the hills. Like it's just interesting to see how people also project themselves and portray themselves in the pods when it's easy. Probably there's not a lot of conflict. You're not in front of the person. Versus then you get in the real world, because you know we saw like there's a trailer for like the rest of the episodes.
Well, I was just gonna say it makes me sad when I see the trailer, because I'm like you, like when I'm watching, I'm like, wow, like the whole idea of what this is cool, right? Like you're actually trying to fall in love with just a good person that you connect with. And you're like, oh, they got it all right. Their priorities are right. Like, this is awesome, you know? And then you see the trailer for like the second half and it's just a shit show of like, oh.
Well, the thing that made me sad in the trailer is the one couple who you seem to think is going to make it. And like the one woman's like, he portrayed himself as this perfect guy and he's not. And it's sort of like, yeah, I mean, is it really that hard if you know you're on TV to come off as like a good man or a good woman for like a week? It's probably not that hard.
Well, I just think they get together and just everyday life isms probably they didn't expect. And they're just like, I can't, it's not going away and it's only getting worse.
Well, the
I
thing
can't do this.
Kind of dumb about the show, not dumb, but like it's turned into this for me. And I think probably even the people who make the show would admit this. It has nothing to do with love being blind. There's like 2 steps in the show. It's like, it is sweet to know that you could, and all of them drop hints. Most of them do about like what they look like anyway.
Yeah.
But it is nice to know that they're not seeing each other. There's no like sort of physical connection yet. And they're like emotionally getting to know each other before meeting. But that's only like a third of the show. Like the rest of the show is literally like they have the opportunity to be like, I don't like, they use the terminology like, oh, like the ick I get from this person. But what they really mean is like, I don't find them attractive. There's no physical connection. Because like that is an important part of like
it is. But I will say,
relationship.
I feel like in the future, dating should be that, right? Because there are some people off of this show that have, you know, married and remained married and like they're good, you know, couples together. I feel like you mess up in the real world when you're dating because it is that initial physical attraction. And then you're trying to make the other emotional part and connection work, where we should just flip it. And it should be this way. Like you can't see this person. So at least you have that checked off. And then you go and maybe the physical and the other connection is in there. And then you're just like, okay, no, on to the next one. And it doesn't work out. But there are going to be the few that it does. And I bet like statistics on divorce will change. That's just my thought.
We've talked about Love is Blind way too long. It's
Okay,
like
it's
outweighed the like fertility talk. So we should probably stop. Anything else fertility wise?
I think that's it. Our little update on the surrogate. Hopefully next time we chat, that test will be done and cleared and we'll be moving forward. But other than that, not really, TK.
Okay. Love you.
I love you.
Thanks for listening to Unexpecting the podcast. Please subscribe, leave a review, and follow Unexpecting Pod on Instagram for info about upcoming weekly episode releases.